Right. I think we're live. Can everyone hear us? I'm sure someone will say something soon. So today I've got Mandy Mangan. Do you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Mandy Mangan. I'm a actress and filmmaker here in Toronto, Canada, as well as a social media content. My YouTube is In Frame with Mandy Mangan, where I cover lots of things about movies, and of course, the It Ends with Never saga. And that's basically my focus right now, is trying to get justice where justice is due in this lawsuit.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. So I've watched quite a few of your videos, and I see you do some pretty you do some of the things that I like doing as well, which is going through the timelines and kind of finding information that may contradict what's going on there. Is what brought you into this case in particular? Because there's quite a few high profile cases.
Yeah, definitely. I think I really jumped onto this case in August with the movie premiere. I was very excited to see the movie and see Justin Baldoni level up in this kind of way with a bigger kind of movie and be tied on with Sony. And then during the premiere, I remember watching Blake Lively come onto the red carpet and talk about how Ryan wrote the rooftop scene. And I was shocked because as a writer, as a filmmaker, and as an actor, I was so taken aback by that comment because I was asking, like, what does Ryan Reynolds have to do with this movie? Like, why did he even have his hands on the script in the first place? So I remember doing like a little Stitch TikTok at that time and going through the IMDb credits where Ryan was never mentioned. So I was like, what is he doing taking the script? And at that point, I knew something weird was going on because Justin Baldoni was nowhere to be seen in any of the PR tour. And he's the director, he has the rights to the movie, he's the filmmaker and the executive
Mm.
producer, and it's his studio. So I really from then was had a lot of questions concerning Blake and Ryan's behavior, and then I watched the entire press tour and was, I mean, flabbergasted. My jaw was on the floor by Blake's own behavior. And then I started watching more videos about past interviews coming up. And then in December, when the story dropped in the New York Times, I read through it. And there was just, I had a lot of questions, but I still gave her the benefit of the doubt from her experience. But a lot of things weren't really aligning from being on set and from my experience in film. And then when I read the countersuits and the timeline of events that Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer people put out, I started connecting all the dots. And then that sent me down so many deep dives at this point. And it's just clear when you look at everything put in front of you what has happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think, what I had a similar experience. I think most people do. I'd heard of Justin Baldoni. I know of his work. I know he, takes quite somber or sensitive stories and, does some amazing things to kind of bring awareness and do them some justice. And, I've got a background with an abusive marriage, so I I was well out of that. But going forward for any other women, it would be nice to see it kind of some awareness being brought to this is a problem. This is still a very big problem in society. And I love the fact that he was partnering with a domestic violence charity as well, to to make sure that resources were promoted and proper proper approaches, authentic approaches to the film were taken. Um, but like you, I noticed that seemed to be missing from all the marketing,
Hmm.
and I I was just like, what's going on? And then all the marketing was all about Taylor Swift songs,
Yeah.
booze and hair care. And I was like, what is this? And especially the grab your florals things, have it's a girly night out. I was just like, my recollection was there was nothing girly about it, and the last thing I cared about was my hair.
Yeah,
I didn't care whether I used a product on my hair. It,
I totally agree with you there. I think there was a lot of shallowness taken on Blake Lively's part and Ryan Reynolds, who did the marketing with maximum effort. I think
yeah,
if a professional actress who was seasoned and had work behind her and a resume behind her to step into this role emotionally, I think would never have promoted it in this way. And I also think that
no,
it was extremely shallow by, yeah, Lily Bloom has a flower shop, but it's not all about flowers and hair and that stereotypical of being a girl of, grab your flowers, wear your florals. It was just very, very tone deaf and a mockery, really, of women who have to go through situations like this and other situations. And it was, yeah, I just thought the entire thing was a mockery of real women's trauma and pain, even though Lily Bloom is a character in a book and now in a movie. It was very it was sad and quite honestly, if I'm being honest, quite pathetic of them to glaze over real women's trauma in a way to make it a summer cool blockbuster hit. And it's not that at all.
no, it's not. It's not. And I mean, some of the marketing as well, like, because I know that obviously, like you said, it come from maximum effort, but he was kind of almost sexually harassing Brendan Sklenar, doing that junket, um, where the mother. I don't understand the mother and why the hell is his mother there? I don't get that.
That
Why
was
is Hugh
so
Jackman there?
bizarre.
It was weird, but they just
It was
kept talking
weird.
about Brandon Sklenar's butt and talk and jealous husband. Like, why would you bring these themes into this film and laugh about it?
Totally. That was such a strange video PR promo to put out. First of all, and then I go back to what is Ryan Reynolds doing there? Why is he here?
Yeah.
Why is Hugh Jackman here? Why is Ryan's mom here making jokes about Brandon going to be the new daddy or something? It was so beyond strange because I think everyone was asking, where's Justin Baldoni? Where's Wayfarer,
Mm.
right? And to have them do these kind of skits that made no sense, mocking again DV coming in as a jealous husband. And I think he brought up like drugs or something. And it was just, it was so tone deaf and they weren't getting it. And then you see emails from the Wayfarer team to Blake's team and to Sony asking them to shift the narrative that their PR isn't working. The whole time you get these emails now from Justin's side that they were trying to actually protect Blake's image. They were emailing them saying, hey, we're getting bad audience review. They're not liking this. Grab your florals, come to the moot, grab your girlfriends and florals. We need to pivot, we need to change. And they're actively emailing Blake's team, trying to get them to switch and to pivot their marketing campaign, and they didn't. And it just shows that the whole time that Justin Baldoni was still at that point trying to protect Blake's image by addressing her completely tone deaf PR stunt that she tried to pull. And that just shows that there was no smear campaign because there's emails proving that they really just wanted to protect the movie and try to protect Blake's image at any way that they can.
Exactly, and I mean, why would he want to tank his leading actress anyway? She was the big name. She was the one that people had heard of. For the rest of the film. Tell you the other thing that really bothers me as well is this is this came from Colleen Hoover's book. Her book was supposedly about her mother's trauma, and there has been some discrepancy on how much of it, is actually her mother's real kind of story. But I can't understand why she kind of sat back and allowed allowed it to be taken. Well, I don't know. I say I can't
Yeah.
understand it. I mean, I suppose she did. This is the same woman who brought out a colouring book for the film.
Yeah, so I think because there's emails between Colleen and Justin too, where Colleen said, she was very weary on who to sell the book rights to, and she didn't want this to be some comedy or some big love romantic story. She really wanted to dive in and have it told in a serious way that would bring justice to the book. And that's why she chose Justin, because of his resume, because of who he is, because of what Wayfarer stands for. So it's really funny that she went from that perspective in pre-production before she sold the rights, and then throughout the pre-production of not wanting it to be this big, um, fancy love story, and she really wanted to do justice to the book. And then all of a sudden start selling nail polish and coloring books and kind of following Blake's lead. And I really think what they tried to do was make this, the big Mattel Barbie movie, and how that came out and all the wardrobe and the outfits and all the accessories. But Mattel was already a household name. People were already buying
Mm.
Barbie. They were already wearing pink. So, and it's just the wrong film. If Blake would have done this kind of marketing for Another Simple Favor, which she knew was already coming out because she went straight from Shooting It Ends With Us to that movie, that would have been acceptable because that movie is that kind of like theme and realm, and there's tons of outfits and it's costume and fun. This wasn't it. And I think that's where a lot of people started looking into Blake and Blake's past and who she is, because how can one woman be so deceptive and manipulative and this kind of like tone deaf, about
Yeah.
something, and then you find out who her and Ryan really are.
Oh yeah. I think that's been really an eye opener because, like I say, I didn't really know too much about her. I'd never seen her in anything. Um, Ryan Reynolds, I loved him. I did. I liked his films. I liked that kind of dry humor. Um, I love Marvel, so I mean, I really liked Deadpool. I thought he did a good job. Um, I feel kind of, I feel a bit ripped off. Now I've discovered what is under the surface. And I know there's this thing about actors, especially ones who have kind of use a lot of comedy, that there's a darker side hidden. But this isn't just that type of darker side. This is nasty and manipulative and just like everything that is goes into the worst kind of human being. In my opinion, um, I've been really disappointed by all the things that have come out. To
Same.
to in what these people are like.
Yeah, totally. Before this, I didn't know much. I didn't honestly, this was a huge leap for me to follow anything Hollywood or celebrity wise, because I never really paid any mind to it before. And I guess in a naive kind of way on me, I didn't want to look into the evils of Hollywood or the monsters behind the camera in a way. And
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Blake Lively except that she was Ryan Reynolds' wife and she goes to the Met Gala and wears fancy dresses. I honestly didn't watch anything with her in it. I was a little bit too old for the Gossip Girl thing, and then never watched any of her movies. So I didn't know anything about her. And then the more I started digging into her and Ryan, the more I was shocked. And I just couldn't believe that this has been going on for so long. This pattern of just being very, very cruel and mean. And I know Blake Lively and her team right now are putting her on this whole rebranding PR tour, being this innocent girl's girl and in a victim, and going to be a woman's advocate for all women now. And they're trying to like really rebrand her overnight. But when you see the decades of treatment that she's done to other people, to interviewers, to just her own stories coming out of her mouth, from her own mouth, the things that she has said, it's it's mean and it's cruel and it's tasteless, and it's in the film industry, it's extremely unprofessional.
It's being used to her advantage. Like now it suits her because obviously she was actually asked during the promotion. You know, there was that one interview where she was sat on the sofa next to Brandon Sklenar, and the guy and the interviewer said, "If a survivor comes up to you and wants to share their story, how do they how should they talk to you? What's the best thing to do?" And that whole thing of, the sarcasm,
Oh
the kind of
yeah.
bitchiness, and it's like you can't you're being asked a serious question that people are wanting the answer to. Now's your time to be relatable and approachable because you're taking on, she just didn't seem to take on the role in the same eyes that Justin Baldoni did, and that's why I love him because um, you know, that's why I liked his work because he goes into this and he takes it seriously, and
Hmm.
he goes out of his way to make it as authentic and genuine and relatable as possible. And like that was the one moment out of all the bad interviews, but that one for me where she was quite seriously asked, what can survivors, not just any old person, what can people who've been through domestic abuse or maybe still going through it, how can they come and say to you, thank you, or, you know, this is what happened to me, something like that. And the way she responded was, it just made me kind of feel nauseous, to be honest. I don't know a better
Well,
word for it, but, I don't know how she can actually sit and think that is a good answer. Um, and
I,
I don't think she ever did give a serious answer in that interview.
I don't think I
But
heard her give any serious answer except that one. I think it was weeks after, and that's only because I think Sony and Wayfarer asked her to do it, and they came out and said that, oh, she's advocating for women, and I think she did like one post or said one statement, but that question was absurd. The interviewer was asking her a serious question, and when you take on roles like this, you do expect audience reaction, and especially something so serious that was based off real life experience that many women have gone through. And to hear her talk about it in a way, and that interview, just to bring it to that specific interview, the way she answered was like, what should I do? Give them my location share, have them text me, tell them to text me, or it was, I could not believe that she was speaking like that and saying things like that. It was, the whole thing was a disaster, and that's where the smear campaign that she's saying started from. It's really from her own words and actions and interviews, and she just kept going on, and then having, talking about more of the wardrobe and her rings and her hair, and how in order to get into character for Lily Bloom, it's the outfits she wore. And I was like, oh, okay. So you didn't rely on any actual, experience or pain or relate to Bloom in any way whatsoever. You didn't
no,
go and talk to other victims, other survivors. You didn't speak to women who have been in situations. You didn't do any homework, any research. You got into
exactly,
character by wearing a pretty dress
exactly.
and
And
Louis
and
Vuitton
now,
shoes.
yeah, and now she's like, now she's come out and said, "Oh, my mum went through it all." It's like you didn't even speak to your mum.
Right. That was
Yeah,
so strange. And notice in that speech that she gave at the Time 100, she mentioned also that, oh, my mom's probably going to get your number later and text you. She's like that. And I think that is a complete reverse of when she was asked, how do people reach out to you? It was like
yeah.
a cover.
I think so. I mean, personally, for the smear campaign, I do blame her because her actions are her own. But also, Maximum Effort was running the marketing, so I kind of blame my husband too. I feel like she should
Yeah.
be suing him for a smear campaign.
That's what I said too. If she wants anyone to blame, they should go to couples counseling, do a meditation where they look at each other eye to eye and hash it out between themselves, because this is what happened. They really thought that they could take this movie and turn it into something that it wasn't, make a mockery
Yeah,
of it, and everyone was just going to buy in because they're Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni is so beneath them. They have more fans than him. No one will care, and then we'll take over the whole franchise.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good suggestion. No, go and stare into each other's eyes because when she was talking about that with Justin Baldoni, because he does it with his wife, she didn't she call them sociopaths?
Yeah. I really
But
truly think that they are narcissistic sociopaths, and it's a pattern. It's a pattern for
mm,
Ryan Reynolds to come in and bulldoze other people's projects and take them over. I mean, as well as Blake, they did it for the Deadpool. Ryan did it. It's well known now that,
yeah,
the first director and the other actor left because of Ryan. Then he took over the franchise. Blake did it
yeah,
on Age of Adeline. There's posts now and people have come out about why that took so long to come out, and Blake was very problematic and took over post production and the edit and things like that. Then Ryan Reynolds with his friend Rob McHeleny did it again to some gamers in Montreal, which I've just discovered. Brett, Douglas McDowell, and Aiko Ishiwata, they took over their gaming idea
yeah,
and then further mocked them, as well as mocked
yeah,
them with their own dog, their own service dog. And then
yeah.
now they're doing it here. So it's definitely a pattern. I mean, four is a
Oh, yeah.
pattern for these people.
And that's quite a nice segue actually, because we everyone can knows the Deadpool, the people from Deadpool who were pushed up. They know that. I think Ashley Brianna Eve also found something with the Blade series as well, and Ryan Reynolds. So I don't know too much, but she did find something. I know she's done some videos, but
Yeah, the Blade too. So I guess he was in the last Blade with Wesley Snipes. I don't know too much about it yet, but there are rumblings because Wesley he came out afterwards and I guess he did some interviews and it wasn't too kind with Ryan. And then Ryan went
yeah,
and did Blade without the lead star, who is Blade. Um,
yeah. Although
Very
he was
odd.
in the Deadpool and Wolverine film,
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes was,
Yeah, he
but
played a cameo.
yeah, he did. But that kind of takes us quite nicely actually, because obviously Brett and Aiko are a bit of a mutual interest of ours. They I've become really good friends actually with them. Because I started talking to them and I listened to their story, and when you it they these are people who don't have that same voice as anyone else that Ryan Reynolds seems to have screwed over. Maybe except for that newspaper reporter that he tried to claim run him over. Yeah. But
I
Brett and Aker, I mean, they are just they're independent game kind of creators. Aiko had a flourishing career with I can never say as a composer for films and games. Um and yeah, you can't it kind of there is evidence. The evidence is there. I do have to say speculation because I don't want to say something that I can't prove, but there is a lot of evidence that when you look at everything together, as I did, and as you have, and I know Ashley did as well, um, there it is quite compelling. It is quite compelling, and even if you can't get on board with anything, Dogpool is undeniable.
undeniable. It's there's so much evidence. When that was first sent to me in February, so I originally took my TikToks and brought them to YouTube because I wanted to do more longer format because I just thought so much of this is really complex, as well as I just wanted to
Mm,
start more longer format and just different format to give the stories. And someone had emailed me that story somewhere in February and I looked into it and I just couldn't wrap my head around it at the time because there was still so much other stuff going on and I was doing deep dives still on so many other things that I was uncovering that I felt like whoa, I needed to just like pause and wait till I had the time and the mental capacity to really look at all the evidence and really take in their story. And I think it's so complex. That's how they like
mm,
these things to be so that people don't look at them. Like what they
yeah,
did to it ends with us. I mean, now that the judge dismissed it and which is very sad and it's not right. But when you look at it, it is so complex the way little by little by little they took over the film and they did the same thing here and then further mocked them. The likeness that they've used and then the lies that Rob even told by saying that, oh, I've never met them, and then doing interviews where he says that he met this Jason character and the likeness of Aiko and using her, sadly, her
Her name.
drugging. And then the likeness of Dogpool is just, come on. I mean, that is undeniable. There's so much evidence that they took not only their game design, which is very complex because a lot of people don't know about development of games, and it's these little things, right, that make a game.
Yeah,
And there are so many little things that they pulled when the showrunners were there doing their, homework, I guess. And then they took all of the likeness from them, like their own being and their own
yeah,
experiences and their own service dog. And then to further mock Brett in his character that he's supposed to be in their show, to, being in the military, to having back problems, to, there's just so much that they've done here, and it's the exact same thing that they did with the Nice Pool character and Justin Baldoni.
yeah. And and again, they used, although they spelt it differently, the pronunciation of the character Aiko on, that looked identical to actual Aiko, um,
Yeah.
in an episode which is literally called, isn't it called the convention? Which is where she was drugged. It's like how stupid do they say? And
Yeah,
the thing is,
and
right, is they put it out there right in plain view as well. But in fairness to Brett and Aiko, right? I really pushed back because I did their threads and I put out the story. We worked really hard on bringing. I said to Brett, look, maybe we're putting out too much in one go. It's a lot for someone to digest. Let's pick the most obvious and most relevant one, and we went with Dogpool because it's clear, you can see it's relevant to the case because of the Dogpool Wolverine link, but also the shift away from the dog that should have been Dogpool in the comics to the dog that they ended up with, and then you look at Starbuck, and it's such a unique looking dog. You know,
yeah.
you like and then he actually, and then I found a clip of Ryan Reynolds literally saying, "I went looking for the ugliest dog in the world."
Yeah,
He
he does
searched
say
high,
that.
he had searched high and low for that, and just happened to find this dog. But I mean, a lot of people have said to me, "Well, it's ridiculous. Why are they assuming? They nobody? No, 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 no. That's not true because you've got Brett worked on Deadpool 2 as a stand-in for Ryan Reynolds. Um, you got Aiko was at that convention with oh, I can't remember the name. It was a guy from Ubisoft
Hmm.
who produced Mythic Quest. Who Yeah, it was a production studio that brought Mythic Quest, when which Rob McElhenney was in. And then on top of that, you had the connection with the ex-husband, with Aiko's ex-husband, who had worked on several films with Ryan Reynolds, including Free Guy, which is one of the ones that they believe their intellectual property and likeness was stolen and put into, and Deadpool and Wolverine, where Dogpool appeared.
Yeah, you have these same people that worked on their projects that went and
Yeah,
worked on Ryan Reynolds projects, and you can, it's undeniable the evidence that Aiko and Brett have against Ryan Reynolds and Rob for their games, Mystic, or their video TV shows. Free Guy is a movie, and then Mythic Quest is on Apple. I think it's a series. And the convention episode is what really triggered me, honestly, because Aiko, who had such a promising future, she already had contracts in the work. She went to the convention, the gaming convention, I think it was in 2017 or 2016, and she was drugged. And then and she reported it to many people. And after
yeah,
she reported it, her contracts were all canceled. So
yeah.
that
They all
number
dried up.
one was heartbreaking, because it's just, that is so heartbreaking, because a woman speaks up and then she's silenced and her career seemingly taken away. But then on top of that, in the episode that they chose, they showed a character, Echo, and they said we can make her do whatever we want to. And
Yeah,
that's what I was like, why would you name your character the same as the gamer who reportedly got drugged at this same convention and then put a joke in that you can do whatever you want to her. It's sick.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
twisted. It's the same name and she looks exactly like Aiko. So
Exactly.
it's sick. It's sick.
It is. It absolutely is. And it's like people, they'll say, well, why would they? Why would they'll say, well, why would they be thinking Ryan Reynolds Boswell? But but that's not the point. They have connections, direct connections to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. One of them has shared a studio, a film set with Ryan Reynolds, and then has seemingly been mocked in a film. Does this
Mm-hmm.
sound familiar? You know, we're here. Like when everyone said the same thing when it was first put out that Justin Baldoni might have been, that Nice Pool was built around Baldoni to mock him. Everyone was like, "Oh, that'd be ridiculous." No, are we still being ridiculous, really? But
Right.
I mean, they don't have the voice at all. And the other thing that people say to me is, "Oh, well, they're only jumping on the bandwagon now because this lawsuit." No, no, no. No, they have been making complaints and trying to take action. I think I've seen stuff going back to 2019.
Yes.
This is long before this film was even on the radar.
They've been very vocal. Unfortunately, I think because it's so complex, and I think because of the power that Ryan Reynolds yields in the film community, which I didn't think he was as big as now I know that he has his hands in
Oh
everyone's
yeah,
pockets. I did not think that at all. I didn't think he was as powerful, but it turns out he's really, really on top of this
yeah.
whole pyramid of people. And they have been very vocal and they've been filing in the courts. And I think the court docket that I saw was as far back as, yeah, 2019, 2021. So they have been telling their stories since it's happened. This is before it ends with us. But I think people are now just paying attention because you see that it's a pattern and it's a repetition for these monsters. I mean, I call Ryan and Blake monsters. That's my own opinion. And it's a pattern that they come in and they claw their way into people's own productions. And Blake herself has even admitted when she was in an interview, I think it was for Forbes, saying that she likes to sign on as an actor and then come in and take complete ownership and authorship over other
Authorship.
people's work, authorship over other people's work, and that she doesn't just want to be an actor. And, when people see that, they seem like the rug is being pulled from under them, but she's not happy unless she has her hands in everything. And that's, I mean, very telling because that is exactly what has happened to so many other people in the past. And I think it's just a matter of time before more people come forward and speak on their experiences working with these two. Because if it's happened
Yeah.
to on 4 projects, it's happened on more. And what happened to
Oh
Aiko and
yeah.
Brett is it's awful because they are small creators and they are independent creators who don't have a reach, don't have the money, don't have the finances to fight like, Justin Baldoni
Mm.
has been or has the opportunity to now. And I hope more people pay attention to their story because it's heartbreaking. And to know what happened to
Yeah.
Aiko to be silenced like that and her work opportunity be taken away is exactly what Blake Lively is claiming has happened to her and how she wants to stand with all victims and all women and she's not going to be silenced. Meanwhile, silencing and stealing likeness from
Yeah.
another couple. It's
Yeah.
absolutely
No.
ugh.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with you. And just on that actually, the actual incident as well with the drugging at the convention. They at the time I remember. I've spent time with Aiko. I've talked to her. Over Teams and things, and properly kind of having a conversation like this, and we've become really, really close actually. I adore the both of them, but you know, one thing that happened when she first reported that she'd been drugged, she was very much shut down. No, 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 that does not happen. Do you know they have come out and actually said, yeah, okay, there have been drugging incidents. It happens quite commonly actually, and I think the president of one gaming company. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I put it in the video that I did about them. one of the presidents of one of these huge gaming companies um, was also drugged at a convention, not, a few years later. It is such a big problem for at these conventions that people who attend are being drugged.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I didn't
Mm,
know that that was their response, is that no, 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 this doesn't happen. This isn't like,
yeah.
oh, and then to know that it
Oh,
happens quite frequently
yeah.
is so sad. That is
Oh,
awful.
it's it's worse than that actually, because we when we broke the story, so when we focused on just Dogpool, just to get people to kind of keep their attention, make it a bite-sized piece that someone could look at. They keep their attention till we got to the end of the story, and it was a great visual for, oh yeah, no, I can see that. And then hopefully, what we were hoping to do then, and it has worked actually, because people are talking about it, is to add in more. Well, actually, there's also this, and there's also that. But one of the things that happened when the Dogpool story broke out, is the I can't remember the acronym. I think it's like the Female Composers Safety League, who which was Aker was a member of, obviously. They actually reached out to her. I think that was in April, and they got in touch with her and said, "What can we do to help?" Now, we all thought, great. I know myself, I know citizen journalists, we all reposted this information because Aker put it up, and we were like, oh my God, great, some movement. No,
Right.
they went on to block both Brett and Aiko on social media and haven't been in touch again since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. That's so sad.
So much for a safety league, huh?
Right. Yeah. What did they call them? Safety League, the Gamers Safety League or something? Is it that or women?
Female composer.
Wow. Yeah, really looking out for their own, you know? I wonder what happened there.
I don't know. I asked Aiko, and we're not entirely sure. Um, I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing that they would have wanted the pair of them to kind of, right, okay, we'll talk to you, but stop talking about this. Well, why should they? And they
Right.
didn't. And then they obviously went on. They filed their motion to intervene when Discovery was going on with Marvel. Obviously, as a result of the defamation and Ryan Reynolds kind of the claim for defamation against Ryan Reynolds being dismissed for prejudice, the subpoena has now been quashed because it's no longer relevant. That discovery is not going to happen on Marvel. So as a result, Brett's motion to intervene has also been, you know, kind of denied.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I could see that happening once the dismissal come. I could see what was coming next, but it was disappointing. I was quite disappointed because I was hopeful, but at the same time, they got all that information on a docket in a massive, massive lawsuit, and people are talking, and I'm hoping that they will go somewhere. And if they're both up to it, they might actually bring their own actions, because I think they've got decent evidence.
Yeah, I hope that their story keeps being shared because it's very important. I think
Yeah,
I didn't see the dismissals coming, and I've read every single court docket, and it was shocking that he dismissed or he didn't, granted all the dismissals to all of the people. Um, Again, I talk a lot on my channel about morality and legality, and I think morally, what they've done is disgusting. What they continue to do
yeah.
is awful, but legally, I guess they weren't able to prove it, at least in this forum, but we all know what happened. And Brett, yeah, he filed his first, I think now it's been 3 or 4 letters that he filed. And the first one, I think, got stricken or it was removed or hidden, sealed, I think. And then when he asked to intervene and he asked the Judge Lyman for 48 hours to decide whether or not, he could have whatever pending discovery from Marvel or hold the discovery, the next day the judge came back and denied it. So it just seems like, I don't know, a lot of weird things are going on in that case because we see the evidence, we see the proof, We see what's going on and we want answers from Ryan Reynolds, from Marvel, from these people who seemingly are just so big and powerful that they can do whatever they want, even at the expense of other people's trauma and pain. And they can take people's real life, take their whole story, take who they are as a person, like they did with Justin Baldoni, and mock them
Yeah,
and make fun of them on such a huge scale without zero accountability. And I'm very happy at least that Brett and Aiko were able to get their story out there and now people are paying attention and looking into it, because as complex as it is, when you really simplify it and look at the evidence and read the story and see all the people connected, it's so exactly like what happened with It Ends With Us, where Blake brought in all of her dragons and went into this whole complicated issue. But when you break it down into a timeline and you break it down and you look at the evidence, it's there. It's you can't
yeah.
deny it.
No, and especially when you speak to them as well. That's the thing. Like, is because it is one thing to read someone's words, and form a judgment, but when you actually hear them talk, because you get a lot more detail then when you can have a back and forth conversation, and I can start thinking about, well, I'm going to ask about that, I'm going to ask about that, and I mean everything they said. They gave me an entire Google Drive of information. They had if they said, oh, we sent an email to this person, they had the email. They didn't just tell me. I wasn't just taking their word. I have seen absolutely everything, so much documents. It's ridiculous. I think you've probably seen them. I know Ashley has because I sent them to her. So, people have actually seen all, we haven't put everything out there because I've said to them, we're doing step by step, we'll do stage by stage, even though, his motion effectively has come to an end with the court for now. I don't know if something may come back later, depending on the second amended. I doubt it, but I'm open to the possibility, as is Brett. But like there is still a story here to be talking about, because Ryan Reynolds is still very much in this. He's going to be brought back in on a second amended. He, he's still part of 3 out of 4 of those claims that are going to go
Yeah.
forward. I On the judge note, but I wasn't entirely surprised by the dismissal. I will say that I was expecting him to dismiss everything. What I wasn't expecting was the without prejudice bit, the with prejudice bit, that a lot of the claims were going to be thrown out, never to be brought back again. However, however, one thing and I've just said this on Ashley's channel actually. So one thing I will say from a legal perspective, because that's kind of my area, is I think he might have actually done Wayfarer a favour in the end. And I know this is going to sound funny, but listen, bear with me a minute now. So her claims are still there, the sexual harassment. So he still gets to defend himself and bring anything he wants to defend those claims. But on the other side, he's also still got those 4 claims. Those 4 claims include the implied breach of covenant and the tortious interference. And that is all about her seizing control of the film
Mm,
and interfering with his relationships, with his economic relationships, costing him jobs and opportunities. So when you look at the first amended complaint from Wayfarer, the complaint has 2 sides to it. One is, we didn't commit these acts, we didn't sexually harass anyone, but also she tried to steal our film and destroyed all these opportunities. She's destroyed his career. Those are the 2 sides that you actually brought anyway. So for me, they've still got those there. Those are still going forward. But now we've got rid of the great big weight around Brian Friedman's neck of Section 47.1.
mm.
So no more amicus briefs, I hope.
Oh gosh.
No, the risk of she'll file for the treble damages, but at the moment, I'm hopeful the judge will say no to that, specifically because we're currently in a position where he is not considered Section 47.1. He did not dismiss anything on that basis.
Right.
So I'm hopeful he will say no, you know, and he might do because I get the impression he doesn't want to go and have to deal with Section 47.1, to be honest, because it means he'll
Well,
have to read all his amicus briefs for a
yeah,
start.
I mean, in his
But
ruling, he did say at the end that he didn't have to look at the amicus briefs, and this
yeah,
ruling isn't on 47.1 because he didn't need it for these specific
yeah,
claims. So, yeah, I don't it's kind of wild that they filed again another Rule 11 sanctions for that, stating that their claim was meritless
oh,
and frivolous, and the judge never said that at all. I think they had a claim, they just didn't file it or pursue it in the right ways, and it doesn't because, Ryan
mm,
and Leslie are so close to Blake. Blake filed her CRD complaint, which gives them kind of blanket immunity from saying whatever
yeah,
they felt like saying that's in the CRD complaint. So I think her case, I mean, they have footage. They were on set. It's a film set. And if
yeah,
you've ever worked in a film set, you are rarely alone unless you go out of your way to go emotionally prep or be alone so that you can get ready or make a phone call. You have to intentionally seek to be alone. Other than that, you're always surrounded with people and there's always cameras rolling for B-roll, for interviews, for, making of. They have so much footage to already disprove her claim, and they already have. I mean, the dance montage has been disproved. The birthing scene,
yeah,
which was a huge allegation, has been disproved. I mean, how many
yeah.
more things, you know?
Well, he's addressed every single point. That's it. I the one thing I keep getting from people who are pro Blake Lively as well, he hasn't addressed her sexual harassment claims, and I'm like, no, he really has. He literally the complaint went point by point. And I I'm not worried about where this is going. I think Friedman is has got a really good plan. I really hope that everyone trusts in his. We have faith in him because he knows what he is doing. And I think she is technically she's lost nothing. And for Wayfarer, I mean, people were like, well, it's not fair. Ryan Reynolds gets away with calling him a sexual predator. That is very true. But Wayfarer's kind of objective in this lawsuit never was for kind of revenge or, to punish anyone. It has always been, I just need to clear my name so I can get my career up and running again, you know?
And it says a lot
That,
about the characters of Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath because it just
yeah,
shows how good and decent they are because we would have never known any of this. The movie Takeover, how difficult Blake was on set, going over budget of wardrobe by $500,000, canceling shoot dates to go to Taylor Swift concerts. I mean, there's so many things that she did, especially getting the PGA credit, how she went about doing that, taking over the editor, firing composers, firing female ADs on set, having all of these people replaced with Ryan Reynolds people. We wouldn't have known anything. We wouldn't have known that she sent Justin Baldoni to the basement of his own movie premiere. We wouldn't have known
no,
any of this stuff. They were willing to let it all go and just
yeah,
move on. And, they're not looking for revenge. They're not looking to smear Blake. They're not looking to. I still have yet to find a video where Justin Baldoni has even talked about Blake in a negative light or has said anything, bad about her. She comes with the utmost respect to just, keep the message on the movie, keep the message on, the positives about the film and the message of the film. And
yeah,
it's just mind blowing that all of this stuff would have been swept under the rug if Blake would have just been okay with people not liking her for a few months. That's why we're here. She just couldn't take it. And every celebrity goes through this during movie premieres they get, or anybody in the public light, you're going to have haters, you're going to have people. And instead of taking a seat back, processing what's going on, realizing, hey, maybe I didn't do service to victims. I should be listening to the women. I should be hearing survivors and victims talk about how they don't think I'm going about this the right way. Take a step back and then come out and maybe apologize or do something nice or kind. She went about this and kind of wanted to like burn it all to the ground, it seems like, and ruin these people's lives who have literally done nothing wrong. I think the only thing that they have done wrong is they gave Blake a little bit too much and they cast her in the first place. I think in pre-production, when Ryan Reynolds first screamed at Justin Baldoni and attacked him in pre-production, I think they should have pulled the plug then on Blake and Ryan altogether and
Yeah, I do.
recast the movie.
I do agree with that. I think they should have just taken that hit at that point. I can see why they didn't. I mean, it must be really hard for someone like Justin Baldoni, who's kind of, he lives his life and his ethos is, that he wants to uplift women and support them. And, I mean, we did see Blake Lively kind of laying it on thick in text messages to him, over the rooftop scene that, well, I
Ooh.
keep being passed over, all these directors, they never, and that's how I can see she knows what his mantra is, and she did abuse that. I think so anyway. But I think we got another feminist in the mix here who I think was the problem, the link between them, and that is Liz Plank.
Ugh, I know. Sorry, my expression was so natural. Yeah,
My face
these,
is off camera, so it's the same.
um pro-feminist, and what's so funny is like I'm a feminist too. Like I want equality, I want women to
Oh
be
yeah,
treated just as good as men, and also I want the violence against women to stop. I mean, I've been an advocate for women my whole life as I've gone through trauma as a child. I've been essayed in college. I've recently, gone through my own toxic workplace environment and
yeah,
essayed on in work. And yeah, I'm a huge advocate for women, but then you have this falsity of feminism, and for Blake now to be coming out as this pro-feminist when she's such a mean girl and has been a mean girl to other girls her whole life. It's just so fake. And yeah, Liz Plank, I think, throwing Justin under the bus, I think she had a big hand in this. I really think that they
yeah,
took his morality, his faith, who he is as a person, and they twisted it and knew that they could use it to their advantage. And that's what Blake did every single time. I mean, that 14-page text message is the one of the most unhinged things I've ever read in my life. It's so cringy. It's just nuts. It's very victimy. It's very, you know, it's just very manipulative when you look at the big picture of things. And Blake loves to live in victimhood. And, she's saying, oh, I'm not taken serious as a writer. I've written hundreds of pages. They made me do it by hand. And then they didn't even give me credit and blah, blah, blah. 14 pages just to then come out and say your husband wrote it.
oh
How,
no, I
you
know,
know, that's to me, it just screams, sets off
but
alarms about this whole relationship with Blake and Ryan, because that is so unhinged. How do you lie so much and manipulate somebody so much to use your writing and then come out and say that it's
yeah,
not even your writing, your husband did it? Like how feminist of you to stand up for women writers, and you didn't even write it, your husband wrote
yeah,
it. And yeah, Liz
and
Plank
she,
is something else. I think she's definitely a very pick me. So she runs really good with Colleen and Blake, and
yeah,
her whole identity is about men and men's missions and what do men want and how do men get attracted to women, and like it's just very bizarre. And to have Wayfarer, Jamie and Justin get so close with her and level her up on such a big stage by bringing her on the Man Enough podcast for years. If you look at some of the videos between Liz, Justin, and Jamie, I mean, they looked like they were a family, best friends. And
yeah,
she didn't see any red flags. She didn't see anything. She continued to work with them
no,
all the way up until Ryan cast her in the Wrexham promo video. I mean, it's so shady, it's so backstabbing, and nothing to that screams to me, hey, pro woman, pro feminist, equal rights. It screams to me very like pick me, and wherever the money is, that's where I'm going to go, and screams grifter, and you'll take whatever side is paying you the most instead of morality and standing up for what's right and defending who you are very close with. I mean, they were close. If you look at the videos, they were so close, and Justin
yeah,
and Jamie trusted her. I mean, the conversations they would have, they cried with her. They told her their deepest, darkest secrets. They did so much stuff, you know? So for her to just abandon them and jump ship because Ryan Reynolds is in her pockets, to me is the lowest form of humanity, really, or one
Oh,
of.
definitely. No, definitely agree with you there. I mean, yeah, I think she was. I mean, I did a bit of a deep dive on her, and obviously there was that Instagram post when they announced Blake Lively's casting, where she credited Liz Plank for it. It's
Hmm.
like so, but Liz Plank had known Ryan Reynolds longer. We did
Yeah.
that kind of we worked on that little bit of a timeline there. She met Justin Baldoni a few months later. Well, got in touch with him over his I think it was his podcast, Man Enough podcast. Not the one she went to work on. It was or it might have been some kind of series. It confuses me because everything is called Man Enough, so I'm having to
Yeah.
work out what am I talking about here. But it wasn't the podcast she went to work on. He had like a series before then, which was also called Man Enough, and then he brought out a book called Man Enough, and it's just like there's a lot of Man Enoughs. But she'd already known Ryan Reynolds, and I mean she was obviously there when uh kind of around the time when he was kind of putting together, you know, bringing this film to life, and as was Alex Sachs, who also seemed to, she's got a history as well of, taking advantage of a man who has been accused of sexual harassment, um, and kind of, she took his business off him. It was, oh God, I did the film, Florida, Florida Heights or something like that.
Wow.
I'm hope. Sorry.
No, I just said, wow, I have to look into that because I never heard of that before.
Yeah, I I haven't got my deep dive in front of me, and I haven't got anything in front of me to go and look at. But yeah, I did a whole thing about her where she do you know I'm going to go and look for the thread now. But she so Alex Sachs is obviously the producer. She's known Justin Baldoni for quite a long time, and she was one of the first people that he told he bought the rights to the book and was going to turn it into a film. So, um, but she did an interview then afterwards where she wouldn't even say his name, and she credited Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, and Liz. Oh no, not Liz Plank. Who was that? It was. Oh, I've now got it in front of me. Bear with. She credited someone else. Oh yeah, Christy Hall. That's it. Christy Hall, the scriptwriter. But she would not say Justin Baldoni's name throughout this entire interview. And I put a link to that interview. It was just very bizarre. And then I had to look through her Instagram followers and who's following her, and you know.
Wow.
He's following Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Colleen Hoover, Brendan Sklenar, Taylor Swift, Jenny Slate, and Hassan Minaj. And she is followed by Jenny Slate, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Wayfarer Studios, and Isabella Ferreira. So Blake Lively doesn't follow her, neither does Brendan Sklenar, neither does Colleen Hoover or Taylor Swift. And I was like, okay, Ryan Reynolds, they follow each other. That's interesting. Um, but yeah, it was the Florida Project was the film, and she turned a bit of a blind eye to her fellow producer Andrew Duncan. Now, Andrew Duncan was accused of sexual harassment by several people who were associated with his production studio, June Productions. Um, and what happened is he denied all the claims of improper behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Alex Sachs was made aware of his behaviour. She was aware of his behaviour for more than a year. She did nothing to address anything that was brought to her attention. But in the end, she kind of put out a statement saying, well, in light of these allegations of misconduct, I'm assuming sole ownership and leadership of June Productions. That was more than a year after the allegations first come out.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
This
found
is
out
the first
so
I'm
much.
hearing about this. I'm like shocked. I'm like already looking it up like, oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I did a video. I've got a thread on X about it, and I did a video because I have a series on. I've got three kind of segments of my YouTube channel. One is this, the special guest, and then there's another one which is like I do a weekly recap of what's been going on with the docket and what filings and what pop culture news is there about this case. And then I have one which is the deep dives, which is where I talk about the various characters involved in this. And that's so that all of that information is there, and I put in links to any interviews, IMDb's, anything I use or kind of get information from. There's links so everyone can go and see the what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
amazing.
was quite shocked. I was shocked because that's now two women that Justin Baldoni has trusted long term and worked with who seem to be in on this. And it's so this is for me. It's Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are a big problem, and they have a history of themselves. But how many did they turn all these people against them, or all these people? It sounds like they're quite shitty people anyway, because they come with their own histories, and
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
shocking.
It's very shocking and it just makes you kind of question relationships in specifically in this industry. Are people looking to just walk over the little guy to get further and further up? And it makes me just question, humanity in and fame, because it seems like there are certain people that will just latch on to the next big thing versus staying true to who they are and staying true in morality, and where maybe they don't have a shift of morality, or their moral compass is a little screwed. But it does seem that there are a lot of people out there that are just willing to ditch what they've known, even if they're good people,
Yeah,
to climb on top of them to get to the next thing and level up. And I think that that is very, very, very sad, especially after the work that Justin Baldoni has done for men. They like to mock him
yes,
for being such a feminist and pro woman. Well, his entire branding was for men to change and to look inward and to change for themselves, to then be able to love and be loved by the women in their life. I mean, women were kind of secondary versus like talking about healing for men. And
yeah,
to bring these women in to hear these conversations and be a part of something that is so monumental and something that we really need in this world is, I don't know, it's just so, it's distasteful and it's shocking. And I think it's, to me, it's horrendous and it's disgusting. It makes me really question trusting people with these kind of sensitive topics and with your mission and branding altogether. Because are
yeah,
people just looking to tie on to the most popular, most rich, most powerful person, which is what it seems Ryan Reynolds is. And he's willing to buy anyone. They love bomb people, and they use them and then just toss them away. They don't carry long-term friendships. Like Blake literally love bombs people. Oh, I love this person. I've known them my whole life. Da, da, da. And then you look and they don't even follow her. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just very weird the
no,
way that they treat people, and people buy it. Like Liz bought it and this girl bought, they drank the Kool-Aid, and it's very sad. And I think it's sad for Justin. He opened up his heart to these people and his studio to these people.
yeah, I completely agree. Well, I mean, we say Justin Baldoni quite a lot. I try to be mindful that there is also Jamie Heath and Steve Sarowitz in this as well as the girls. Jen Abel and
Hmm.
Melissa Nathan. I mean, Justin Baldoni is obviously he's the public figure. He's the director, the person who bought the rights and everything else. And I think he's facing the more severe allegations of sexual harassment. But I try to occasionally remember to mention that there are other people in this as well, including women,
Oh,
and
for
female-run
sure.
businesses,
I mean, Blake didn't
who are
only
all being
throw,
destroyed.
yeah, she didn't only throw, Justin under the bus. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, she accuses Steve Soritz of showing up on day to set only because she was going to be in stirrups with her legs open. She accused of the actor Adam Moonshine, who played the doctor, the OBGYN or the
OBGYN.
OGBYN, um, as Justin's best friend who just came in so he could be close to her private parts when he's actually a working actor and has more credits than Blake Lively actually has, you know? Then she,
Yes.
and to claim all of the things that she's claiming, it's not just towards Justin and Jamie and Steve, it's actually all the assistant directors that were there, the costume designers, the wardrobes, the intimacy coordinators, the cameraman that let it happen. I mean, these are severe allegations that she's claiming, and there are hundreds of people, and it's their responsibility to ensure, you know, that she is covered, that she is protected, and that certain
Yeah.
steps are followed. And then when it comes to the women involved, I mean, I'm heartbroken for Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel. Jennifer Abel
Yeah.
was under the thumb of Stephanie Jones for so long, who, in my opinion, Stephanie motherfucking Jones is awful. She's evil. What a horrible
Oh,
boss. I
yeah.
would never ever, and I'm so against, first of all, mean people, but mean bosses, no. And
Mm.
she is one of the worst. And she finally got the audacity and the bravery to leave and start her own thing after years of humiliation, after Stephanie Jones running in the office spreading rumors and lies about her after being chastised. And, you know, she finally was going to start her own business and do her own thing and probably thrive. And this is what happens to her. And I don't think that they did anything wrong. I thought that they did their job very proper. I mean, they're PR people and crisis managers. I would like to see the text messages between Blake Lively and Leslie Sloan, because Leslie Sloan is known to be ruthless and pivots a lot of the media and changes stories in the media. And it will be very interesting once they get that kind of discovery to see who was actually doing the smear campaign, because I have a feeling that the Wayfarer people, Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel, were only defending Justin, while Blake Lively has been on the attack the entire time, and she's been on the attacks since she started this movie.
Yeah, I mean, did you see actually in those text messages, some of Stephanie Jones's texts are in that text messages, but she's redacted her own name.
Yeah.
You know, the ones where is it they were talking shit about Blake
Mm-hmm.
specifically, or Blake or Justin, one of them, and like on most text messages, you got Melissa Nathan and you've got Jen Abel's names, and they're unredacted, and then there's others then where one of the names is redacted, and that is Stephanie Jones's own text messages.
Yeah, it's so strange. And I also think too, if Wayfarer would have stayed with Stephanie Jones, we wouldn't be here today. Do you know, it was
No.
very vindictive what those women did. I think Stephanie Jones was all up in her feelings. She was super bitter that Jennifer Abel left and then Wayfarer was going to leave because she had just lost all these clients and was already going through bad press. And when they left, she was a scorned woman and decided to, you know, poke the bear, poke the fire, and turn over Jennifer Abel's records the same day, like to try to, you know, be in with the cool kids and get payback on Jennifer Abel, which she's done to a lot of her past clients as well as her past employees. And she tried to do the same thing. And it's just, if Wayfair would have stayed with Stephanie Jones, we wouldn't be here today and there wouldn't be any of this stuff, you know? It's just, it's nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, she was obviously, I think Liz Plank was the villain for the pre-production stuff and kind of because I saw an interview. I think it was the same in because she was wearing the same clothes and it was the same set background, but I'm pretty sure it was the same interview where she did the whole take grab your florals things. But she was asked, you know, what attracted her to the film, and the first sentence out of her mouth was, "It was a good franchise."
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, I'll hook
That's
you up
very
with a video.
interesting.
I gotta have
Yeah,
to
I
send you some
haven't seen
links.
that video. I did see a video where she said that when she was they told her, you know, hey, we're doing this movie. The one they first offered her, I guess, preliminary, they offered her the role. and she had never heard of Colleen Hoover. She had never heard of It Ends
Yeah.
With Us. And then she was walking past the bookstore and saw it in the window, and then went home and decided to do it. She doesn't say she, or no, she bought a book, and I guess she said that when she told one of her friends, like, oh yeah, I got offered It Ends With Us, they were like, oh my God, you have to do it, it's so good. And that's what made her sign on to the film. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting that she said, because it's a good franchise, and it just goes to show motive right there. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on with Blake Lively that we don't know about and we're not going to know about because she's not going to show her medical records. But also, I think something that probably triggered her is her own insecurities, obviously, about her body, about, there's our text messages where she's asked to change some of the shooting scenes so that she can like get more in shape and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think while her husband is off doing Deadpool and Wolverine, which is showcasing Ladypool, Blake has been talking about playing Ladypool forever. She talked about
Mm.
how Ladypool was created in her likeness. I mean, the person that wrote the comic books created Ladypool and wanted Blake to play it. And now her husband is off playing with Ladypool, and she's here shooting an
Mm.
independent movie. And I think that if she's going to be insecure about anything, I think it was probably that. And it had nothing to do with Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer people. I think she was already kind of in
No.
her feelings. And probably thought that it was beneath her, that this movie was beneath her, and that they weren't going to do it justice. And she had to come in and she had to make it her movie because she knows what she's doing. But unfortunately, she doesn't. She doesn't have the experience as a director or filmmaker or editor to put together a movie. So I think there's a lot of things under the surface that happened between Blake and Ryan that we don't know about that caused kind of the waves in the filming of It Ends With Us, if you will. And also with Liz Plank, which is so crazy now that I'm thinking about it, and I've thought about this a lot, is in Blake's own words in her amended complaint, she said that she was texting a friend who was also a friend of Justin and Jamie's, and saying, oh, I was going to have you on set today, but it's not a good day, and then calls them clowns and creeps and insults them and belittles them. Like, why would you put that in your own complaint? It makes you look exactly like who you are, which is super mean and cruel. And it reminds me of
Yes.
what she did to Pedge Badley on Gossip Girl, which she admits that she tried to get the entire cast to dislike him so that she can get him kicked off the set. It's remnants. Like, this is a pattern with these people, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I know. I completely agree. And if that turns out she's texting that to Liz Plank at that point of filming, and which is, more than a year before she actually filed a CRD. And then one of the questions, if I think putting thinking from a legal perspective, well, what's one of the questions if Liz Plank is almost certainly going to get brought in to this, she's going to be deposed, and the questions I would be saying is right. Okay, so back and this time you had this text message from Blake Lively calling the men that you sit and share a podcast with clowns and creeps. What made you continue working with them for another year? Why did you walk away at that point? What did Blake Lively threaten you with slash offer you? What opportunities, incentives? Because I'm pretty sure she's offered a lot to Brandon Sklenar.
Oh,
I do.
100%. Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think
I
she
mean,
has.
it's no surprise that Brandon Sklenar signed with WME when they were on break from phase
No,
one to phase two. It's no surprise that, Blake and Ryan tweeted out that he should be the next Batman. It's no surprise that now he's working in the new Paul Fig movie. I mean, it's
no.
they're all bought, they offer these people things to stay in their corner, and then once they use them up, it's done, the relationship is gone. The only person that's been consistent in their marriage, I would say, is Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, he's probably more in their marriage than they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? Like, because it does appear. I mean, I obviously don't know for sure. What Brian Friedman has definitely done some kind of deal with Taylor Swift. That deal, there is a deal that has been done. That much I'm happy with. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's been negotiated, and I don't know what he's got from her. But something has worked out well. for Wayfarer. Now that'll come out. It has to come out at the right time. You can't just drop it on the docket. That pissed the judge off last time he tried to do that. So
Yeah.
he is not going to risk getting this thrown out and getting sanctioned, and I wouldn't either. So he's going to bring this in the right way at the right time. And I wonder what it was that went wrong, because I suppose you can't buy Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And one thing that I think they have is definitely the communication between Taylor's lawyers and Blake's lawyers. I
Yeah.
think they have that, but I think through those text messages, we will start to see what Blake was feeling. I mean, Taylor Swift was her best friend. So are there any texts there of her emotional stress? Are there any texts there about like how hard of a day it was or what Justin and Jamie did to her? I mean, when I'm going through anything in life, let alone severe emotional stress and repeated, which is what she's claiming, repeated sexual harassment, which she was only on set for 16 days. So it seems kind of strange. But if you're going through anything like that, you're texting your best friend about it. So it'll be interesting to see if there's anything like that or what other text was she texting her? Was she texting about, taking over the movie, how they're going to do it, how she doesn't like Justin, how she needs, I don't know. But I think they definitely do they have it, and I think they've had it for a long time.
Do you have any idea because the one credit at the end, I'm not sure what he did to deserve a credit was Bradley Cooper. Like,
Bradley
what did he actually
Cooper,
do?
and she credited Gordon Reynolds, which plays Nice
Yeah,
School, which is very bizarre. The fact that she even got all those credits is nuts, okay? Because, like, she's an actor who was supposed to just get, the producer credit as something that's given out now to big productions to get them to be above the line so that there's like payback, money owed if they make a certain amount, things like that. But, um, there is a meeting that they had, which I call the meeting of the dragons, where they all
yeah,
met. And this was a week after Blake Lively had texted in her own complaint. So I'm taking it from Blake's own mouth that in November, when she found out that the strike was over, she texted another co star, a woman co star, talking about how she's dreading going back. And again, poisoning the water. That's not constructive, especially if you're a producer and the lead actor. It's you're poisoning the water, by texting that. So if she's fine texting other people from the set, who else was she texting this? Maybe she should have been texting Taylor Swift, her best friend and godmother to her children. But then they had a meeting before Blake gave over those first 17 points of demand. And Taylor Swift was there. Bradley Cooper was there. Sean Levy, the director of Deadpool and Wolverine, was there. Ryan and Blake. So I don't know what Bradley Cooper has to do with this, but apparently he was at the meeting of the Dragons. And then allegedly he was also at Blake's first screening where everyone said the movie
yeah.
didn't make sense and it didn't work out. So what else does he have to do with why did he get a credit? Like, why a special thank you? So that will be interesting. And I think if Brian Freeman is able to depose all of these players, we're going to get a much clearer picture of who was involved in this franchise takeover and how much money they made from it. Because I think that they all did definitely made money. I mean, Gigi Hadid bringing it back to that gross PR
Yeah.
thing that they did where Ryan Reynolds was there and his mom was there and Hugh Jackman. I mean, they're all wearing Gigi Hadid's clothes, which cost over $600 per sweater. So
I
I
know,
don't
and that
know
was the
who
hideous
else.
sweater.
Yeah, I know.
It was awful. It looked, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but they looked like they were walking around wearing the trans flag. It,
Yeah, it
they
wasn't
don't.
cute.
I mean that, and the flag looks okay as it is, but as a flag, but not as an item of clothing. It just looked bizarre. Yeah, I didn't like it because Branson Sklenar actually he came out and said, "Oh, that was an initiation thing. I had no idea about it." Well, how did everyone coordinate then? How did
Right.
how did you have a job? Well, how were you? Do you happen to just pick that jumper and everyone else knew that they had to wear it too? Of
Very
course you knew.
strange.
Why? It's
It'll be
it's it
interesting to
is
see Brandon Sklenar get deposed because even on set, he did post set interviews and was talking so highly about working with Justin Baldoni and how great the set was and how professional it was. So you have him
yeah.
actually doing interviews like that as well as the other cast without Blake. They were on set doing behind the scenes interviews and talking about how great it was. And Brandon also was talking about that. So then to now not say anything about it and go on with that PR tour, I mean, shame on them for they must have known that Blake had pushed them out or whatever story she told them. And shame on them for going along with it because how do you just
Yeah.
turn on someone like that that you just a month ago was saying was such a great guy and you loved working with and they gave you this opportunity? It'll be interesting once
No,
all these people start having to tell the truth.
it is going to be interesting because I remember that was a like a People interview with Brendan Sklar, and I think that was one of my early things was he was talking about he's a great guy, you know, you feel so comfortable on set, it's so safe, you know, we enjoy working here, and I'm like, what, what, what this is completely contradicting what you are saying now and how you are acting towards him, and I'm struggling that all these cast members that you know with all the promos and everything where just about on he was kind of frozen out. Like was no one saying, no, I'm not going. If he's not going, I'm not going. Like, why would you just like you say, why would you just go along with that and enable
I
someone to
know.
keep doing that? Like,
It's so beyond. I don't know if I would ever have it in my heart to ever treat someone like that and treat someone
no.
as kind and as as giving and as gentle as Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath are. I mean, yeah, they Jamie Heath talks about his past and how he wasn't such a good guy in his previous marriages and stuff, and but they've learned and you can tell that they're just decent human beings. And Justin Baldoni, I mean, not even to have anybody come out with their kind of story. I think I heard one bad story about Justin Baldoni, which is a man came out and said he worked with him over 10 years ago on a set and felt like he was disrespected or treated like nothing. To that be the only story from anybody for the last
Oh
15
well.
years is like it
I
tells you
is
the exact person he is.
yeah. I often get I usually disrespectfully get asked about, you know, the Travis Flores lawsuit and the Shane Norman one. I'm not going to even talk about there's another one as well with a sports star. I'm not really going to look into that because I had to look into it and you know the guy sold the rights to his books and as happens quite a lot, you know, the Wayfarer as a production studio having bought and paid for the rights to this book, decided not to use them and shelved it. But they now own the rights. The guy's trying to sue for the rights back. Well, you can't just have them. He sold them. You know
Yeah.
that's kind of the risk you take. It's not guaranteed that you're going to get your life story put in a film, and that's the end of that. But I did go into the Travis Flores ones. I've done that quite deep, and the Shane Norman one. So Travis Flores is obviously the what pro Blake Lively supporters lovingly refer to as the dying man he sued
Yeah.
um over 5 feet apart. And obviously Justin Baldoni had absolutely no way of knowing that script. He was nowhere near the script. Um, I think he hired someone else who had cystic fibrosis themselves as a consultant who had fed information from that script, but it was never come from Justin Baldoni or Wayfarer. So they were dismissed completely.
And he
And
also, I think, yeah, Justin talked to a lot of people with that disease. I mean, he really did his
yeah,
homework
well,
and it wasn't just
it
the
was
one person. He had whole
no,
groups with people. And yeah, that entire case was dismissed.
it
And
was
yeah.
dismissed apart from the consultant who was Caleb Remington, who he settled. Um, now he has cystic fibrosis himself, and he was the guy who was brought on as a consultant. But the story was already written, in principle. It was based on the real life of a lady called Claire Wineland who died of cystic fibrosis shortly after the film was the production was completed, but before the film was released. So, it was based on a real person, and the writing was already done when it ever got to Justin Baldoni's hands. But well, from what I read, it seems like some elements which may have had overlaps with Travis Flores's work from his, because he'd written a script as well called 3 Feet Distance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it sounds like that guy had basically given ideas, but they had turned out not to be his own ideas, which is frustrating. But not Justin Baldoni did not steal anyone's stuff, and he certainly didn't do it because the guy was dying. That is just absolutely, the way they spin it is ridiculous. But then you had Shane Norman. Shane Norman was allegedly he sued for racial harassment, racial discrimination. He
That's
worked for
the
Wayfarer.
ex-employee, right?
The
Yeah.
ex-employee. And again, he dismissed the claim. Um, Apparently, Steve Sarowitz told him that they need people who look like him. Now, Steve Sarowitz was never a defendant, by the way, in that case, right? Despite those words apparently coming from him. But also, um, there is another guy who is of color, in the top rounds. You've got Jamie Heath. Um, but I mean, actually, they settled so well. It didn't settle, actually. They dismissed. There was no settlement from Wayfarer. Um, but Justin Baldoni was just remained such good friends with Shane Norman. They're actually good friends, and Justin Baldoni is Shane Norman's client.
Ugh,
Yeah.
wow. I
But
didn't know
if you
that they
listen to
I didn't know that he
the
was still
news
their
or,
client.
yeah, yeah, he's still their client. If you listen to the news or pro livelies, it's, oh well, he's been sued multiple times. Okay, well, let's talk about, because I've had contact from Marilyn Starkloff, the photographer who sued Ryan Reynolds and Maximum Effort for the aviation gin
Mm-hmm.
plagiarization. She designed something and they didn't credit her with it. So she sued them and settled. So, like, okay, then if you want to talk about that, I got some lawsuits as well. I could go through with you here. It cuts both ways. But I mean, I think the spin on some stuff it's been the most disingenuous and obscene things I've ever seen. The
I
way things
mean,
get interpreted, as well, and it really annoys me. You're coming from my legal background, especially this victory lap she's taken right now, of all these suggesting that the organizations all stood with her, and because of that, the judge, saw through the lawsuit, and now she's gonna advocate for victims, blah blah blah. Like, the judge literally said that it's got nothing to do with Section 47.1, and I didn't read the amicus briefs, and I don't get why she's lying. It annoys me.
yeah, lying. I mean, when I saw that Instagram post of her little victory lap, and then she went to some Chanel thing, and she's been released a vodka iced tea because, we need more vodka in the world. And when she posted that on Instagram, that, oh,
Yeah,
thanks to these 19 advocacy groups, da 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 da, I was like, how is that? Did she even read her own? Like, is she reading the court dockets? Did she get to the last page? Did she even read in the middle when he talked about the rule 47.1 and how that's not part of this case? And at the end, he does state, like, this is not ruled off the 47.1. I have not read the amicus briefs. Like, and for her to just go and lie like that, and then have her lawyers be on CNN and TMZ and do all this stuff, lying to the people that is why, is so
yeah,
crazy. And it just shows she will lie about anything and everything. She lies in every interview. She lies in, I mean, she's just a pathological at this point. I mean, if you're lying about something like this, that is literally public record that everyone has read, what else do you lie about of the things that we don't know about? Because Yeah, that was again another shady, distasteful, manipulative lie. I don't know what kind of world like she's living in where she thinks that that is going to be eaten up and taken as truth when we've all read the same exact brief and we read the opinion and order from Judge Lyman. And it's just so bizarre. Like, I can't really wrap my head around whatever reality that she wants us to live in with her, but I'm not doing it. I'm not eating it up. Especially when you look at the advocacy groups who filed the briefs. I mean, four of them right away are done. I mean, Elise Dorsey, who was one of the first ones to file, that woman was actually in an 11-year affair with the person who she's saying is the same thing as Blake. And also the other advocacy groups, Blake's lawyers sit on the board of directors of those groups. So of course they're going to write a letter for Blake. She owns, like, she's the board of directors. It just makes sense that the same lawyer is going to also file an amicus brief if she runs that advocacy group. It's just very false, and it's false light again, and it just doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand. I really don't understand this false victory lap, number one, because nothing was proven. And to then say it's because of these groups and because of this ruling and 47.1 statute, it is bonkers. It's really out there, you know?
Yeah, no, I really do actually. This has been one of the wildest lawsuits I've ever seen in my life. You know, there's so many parties in it as well. You got, you know, the 16 parties, and well, there were before the dismissals. We've obviously lost three, three, yeah, and we're on into two different courts. So
Yeah.
it's been wild to keep up with it. And it's moving at such a fast pace. Like I can barely keep up with it because things don't drop one thing at a time. You know, like I look at on my in my emails and there's 10 alerts.
Yeah.
There are
You'll
10 alerts.
days,
Yeah,
like
honestly,
days without anything, and then all of a sudden, like the 10th, this just happened on the 10th. All of a sudden there's
yeah,
like 15 things. You're like,
yeah.
what happened the last 4 days? Like, what's going on now that there's so much
Oh no,
stuff?
no, no. There's been 10 the last 4 days as well. It's been crazy. Um,
It's nuts.
and like, oh my, her filings in Texas. I mean, they have been 800 and over 1,000 page documents.
Yeah, that one was bananas. I think Jen Wallace is really holding his ground when it comes to the Texas one. I think he has a really good case. I mean, but Blake again is just drowning them in paperwork. She's really abusing,
Yeah,
in my opinion, abusing the court system. She's doing the same thing in the New York one against the Wayfarer people, where she's just filing every day, doing so much, doing just, I believe, just trying to like flood the zone. And then on top of what's happening in court, then now she's going and doing all of this other stuff for PR and for the press to kind of parade around so that they're always in the headlights and in the headlines. And I think that's to mask like what's happening in the court. But what she's doing to Jed Wallace, that 1,000 page thing with all of those attachments, what? Like,
yeah,
it
and it's
was
all
so
attachments. That's
unnecessary.
yeah, and most of them were attachments that had already been attached like a dozen times. Like the judge in Texas already had them, but you know, like me, the way Pacer lists things and labels all the attachments and all the filings, I've no idea what it is until I've already downloaded it. So I'm still paying for. I've paid for
Yeah.
that CRD like about, you know, 25 times now. I've had to pay for it off Pacer because I don't know what it is. Some of them are labeled, not all of them, but I find the ones with Blake that come through Blake Lively or Stephanie Jones are not. They're just like kind of exhibits,
Yeah.
and it's infuriating. But
I mean,
yeah,
I
I
think
mean, how do you?
she even attached in Texas like the Texas law books and like all this stuff about
I
Texas that like the judge knows. Like he knows
know,
what it is. Like he's the judge. It was just so
I know.
unnecessary to file all of
They seem
that
to have
again.
attached. They seem to have attached everything at some point except the Van Zandt subpoena.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to see this.
Yeah, that the subpoena is nuts. It was so crazy when Stephanie Jones kept saying in her complaint and then again in the amended one, because she's in now the two, and saying it was a legal subpoena, legal subpoena. I mean, she must have said that like a dozen times in one of her filings, legal subpoena, legal. And then we find out that it was a fake lawsuit that garnered that sham subpoena and named
Yeah.
it Doe's 1 through 10, but knew to give it to Stephanie Jones to get Jen Abel and Justin's text. So
Did you
why
see the
would you
fun?
name
Did you
it?
see the description? I actually got quite excited about that. Did you see the actual description of the scope of the subpoena?
Yeah,
Oh
it
my
was
God, it was
for
fun.
like breach of contracts and stuff.
No, 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 no. The subpoena itself. Yeah, no. So the lawsuit. I've said this all along. The lawsuit sounds exactly like the lawsuit that Stephanie Jones has brought against Jen Abel, right down to the faithless servant. Honestly, all the breach of contract and the, you know, confidentiality, stealing this, stealing that. It sounds very similar to uh, the lawsuit from Stephanie Jones to Jen Abel. However, the subpoena, and one thing I'll say about that lawsuit, just really quickly, she's trying to hide behind the Speak Out Act. Where in that lawsuit do you see any mention of sexual harassment to hide behind anything?
Right.
So I just my legal point there. But the subpoena literally, right, is that we don't know who the parties here are that we have a contract with. So, but we would like to issue this subpoena. We're going to give it to the CEO of this company, and it specifically says the data, the information and documents retrieved from a phone, from a mobile phone, about Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, their family, and Justin Baldoni. So how can you not know who you're suing if you know that the data has already been collected from a mobile phone? You know that's already happened, and you know that the information should be around Justin Baldoni, should be around Blake Lively, and should be around Ryan Reynolds. But that's all you know. I think she's
That's
going to have a hard time in a deposition with that. I would give her a hard time. I would really look forward to that deposition.
yeah, I'm excited to see the downfall of Stephanie Jones. I am one who definitely preaches and says that we are here because of Stephanie Jones. I think,
Yeah,
again, if Wayfarer didn't leave, even if Blake would have sent that subpoena, they would have fought it, they would have argued, and they wouldn't have even had got that far without Stephanie Jones first telling Leslie Sloan, you know, that she has information that she probably wants. And
exactly.
it's just so nuts. So I'm looking forward to those women being held accountable for their part in this because at some point they're going to have to take accountability for how they went about this. And I'm really hoping that it's introduced shortly so at least Judge Lyman can get the full picture of what's happening, you know, because that was it's whether
Yeah,
it was legal or not, it was so shady. It's
yeah,
distasteful, it's dirty, it's not like a clean move. And when you have the truth on your side, then you don't need to play dirty, you know? You don't need to use all these
yeah.
tactics and lie and manipulate the court and come up with fake lawsuits to get what you want. You just go about it the legal and proper way because it's the truth and you have evidence, you know?
I mean, I do. I know there's been a bit of mixed opinion on this. I know, Ask Two Lawyers, for instance, got quite the ripping apart over their views that this is good lawyering. I personally took this as no, this is outside the rules. We have rules where because I was jumping up and down, going, yeah, but it doesn't matter. They don't have a copy of the subpoena, so they clearly didn't get notice. They're entitled to notice. So that's missing. And when that's missing, I have it. You're not playing by the rules, and the rules are there to safeguard people's rights. You know, like at the moment, Blake Lively, quite literally, we're going to get a response today because Blake Lively is kicking up off a stink that she wants all this information from that third party law firm that's doing the
Yeah,
investigation and it's like they're not even investigating her. They're investigating whether she made a complaint and did Wayfarer respond and act appropriately. Have they, can they recommended changes? It's just about Wayfarer as an employer, not her. But I'm digressing because I'm annoyed by that one because it's a legal obligation for them to do that. It is over here in the UK as well. But she is jumping up and down and moaning because she wants these documents. Wayfarer are like, well, hold on a minute. We haven't asserted privilege, but that's because we haven't seen them. And she's
right.
like, well, she's managed to get the judge, right? So the judge has said, well, they got to respond today. And what they mean by that is not they got to produce documents, but that Wayfarer have to come back and say, this document is privileged, this document is privileged, and say what the privilege is and why it applies. It's called a privilege log. So they have to produce that and either assert privilege or, not. But, you know, they this is what Wayfarer would have had. This is what Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer would have had and would have been entitled to had they been given the notice of the Ban Zan. Like Marvel got to submit a motion to quash the subpoena.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were denied all of these things that Blake Lively herself is trying to now assert on them um for things that she wants. This is what happens now she goes the proper route. She's having to fight to get what she wants. And it's really for someone who whines so heavily to get attorney's eyes only,
Oh,
um and even with that in place, still does not want anyone to see her medical records to the point where she withdrew the claims entirely. So clearly she values her, privacy, and I get that people should, but you don't just kind of like, treat everyone else like they don't have the same rights.
exactly. That's what I feel like the hypocrisy is of it all, is that she fought so hard for medical records, but then in her own complaints, you know, talked about Jed Wallace's condition as well as showed texts
Yeah,
between Justin Baldoni and I believe Jen Abel about his neurodivergence. And it's just insane then that she would then fight so hard for all of these protections and then still get to the point where you don't want to show your medical records. And anyone that's gone through any lawsuit that has to do with emotional or physical pain, your medical
yeah,
records are, they're a big claim. Like
exactly.
that always
You
advances your situation. You don't go to court not knowing that you're not going to have to, of course, you go to court because it's so severe that you had to see doctors, that you were depressed, that you couldn't get out of bed, that you
Yeah,
weren't eating, and you have a treatment plan and a diagnosis for that behavior that caused you to feel like that. So to get to this point far in the game and not want to do it, and now she's claiming to only want to show garden variety emotional distress, which is the same as missing a deadline or having a workplace disagreement, is absolutely
yeah.
ludicrous. I think it's a joke. I think she's making a mockery again of real women's trauma by not wanting to even show that, what she claimed was serious. I mean, in her own
Oh,
lawsuit, she
yeah.
said severe emotional pain where she couldn't get out of bed for days. It affected her entire family. She turned down this, that, that. So now to get to this point in the game and be like, oh, well, I don't want to show my medical records, but can I still submit garden variety emotional stress? You're like, then why are we here? If it's not
Yeah.
severe enough, why did you even do all of this in the first place?
Oh, exactly. And I mean, the claims were absolutely they were huge. And you better believe that if you're bringing a claim like that, because the damages would have been huge with that because of the severity, but you're not able to go and claim that and say to someone, "Look, I want you to compensate me for this," but then refuse to show evidence that one, you got to prove that you've been doing everything you got to everyone has a responsibility to mitigate their own loss. So she has to go and seek help, try and access things, and she can't just sit there and do nothing. She also can't put herself in further harm's way. Um, she has to be, there may be other diagnosis or pre-existing diagnosis where, which could work both ways for her, because it either could um explain her anxiety, in which case, they would kind of reduce the award, or she could argue, well, actually, all of this exacerbated that. It can work both ways. But you cannot just sit there and say, I want millions and millions of dollars from you for all this emotional distress. But by the way, I'm not going to give you any proof that there was any emotional distress whatsoever.
Yeah,
I
you just
it
have to
just
take
it
my
doesn't
word for
happen.
it. You have to
Yeah,
trust
no,
me
no,
and
yeah,
my
believe me.
husband, who are
Yeah.
criminals, who like literally, like in
Well,
my opinion,
I,
do a lot of criminal activity. They just haven't been caught yet. And I think stealing people's intellectual property as well as their projects and their creative control is should be a criminal offense, and that's what they've done.
yeah, I do. I do. I mean, she claimed. I don't know why she put this in there, because she can't. She's not making a claim for them, but she said the same. Like, my husband was severely affected. Now, I watched him do his marketing and press round for Deadpool and Wolverine. He looked better than ever. He
Yeah,
really
I
did. He
don't
looked full of life.
I did not see Ryan or Blake. I haven't seen it once that they have
No.
been emotionally disturbed. And to the point where I've seen them more since she has filed this
Yeah.
CRD complaint than I ever have in the last 2 decades. I have seen
Yeah.
nonstop. They are out every day. They are at events every night. They are out living their best lives. Okay, that like looking in, it
Yeah.
looks like they are having the time of their life and have been ever since the summer of 2024. They haven't skipped a beat. Blake Lively hasn't
No, they.
skipped a beat. Like, she didn't
No.
take time off. She wasn't so
No.
disturbed from what happened to her on It Ends With Us that she couldn't do any work again. She left that set and immediately went to Another Simple Favor. And then on top of that, was able to and forced her way in. She wasn't invited to the editing room. She first forced her way into the editing room. And you're telling me someone who was so emotionally distressed from repeated sexual harassment is going to sit in an edit room and watch the violation over? Like, when you're editing, you have to watch the clips thousands
Yeah.
and thousands and thousands of times. And she went there willingly, forced her way actually into the editing room to sit there and watch herself be violated over and over
No.
and over again while still filming. So when was this stress? Because it's not adding up. It's not,
And
there was no time
no,
off.
it's not. And there's all the Taylor Swift concerts we found as well. I think I put like a post, like I got a long list of all the things that she carried on in life. The only thing she seemed to have cancelled was an appearance on Saturday Night Live,
And who
which,
knows
and she still
if
turned up there in the end to sit in the audience.
exactly.
Like,
Exactly. So
what?
who knows if she was even actually booked to do it, scheduled to do it, why she didn't do it. I mean, we know that her
No.
first SNL appearance, I think in 2009 or something, that didn't go over very well. And
Mm,
I think a lot of those skits were coming back up. So who knows why she didn't do it? Like, it could have been a scheduling thing, a timing thing. It might have not even had anything to do with It Ends With Us. And so she canceled one thing, and even if it was because of this one thing, and that pays for what all of the time that you were still filming other things, doing Vogue shoots, doing that whole PR press. I mean, if she was actually going through a lot of emotional distress and was sexually harassed, you that changes you. And while she was doing the PR tour for It Ends With Us, it would have come out. She would have at least shown some kind of emotion or feeling towards women who are in those positions, because it naturally, I mean, it just changes you forever. And you
yeah,
talk about it once you're through it. So I didn't see that one time. I didn't see her pain and suffering. And she's always in the public eye, so it's not like, maybe she was doing it behind closed doors but then came out and was like on top of the world. It doesn't work
no.
that way when you're going through
And
something
now
this
she is
severe.
like, now we have got her looking completely on top of the world. Now she's had the, like with the dismissal, all the photography and all that, and all the photos. She looks fine. She was at the premiere of Deadpool and Wolverine in London. She looked fine. I'm sorry she did. I tell you what really bugs me is when she recently came out and talked about her mother's experience at Time 100. I feel like because she was sat at Book Bonanza with Colleen Hoover, and Colleen Hoover's mum was in the audience, and Colleen Hoover's sort of sitting there and saying, "Well, I wrote this book because of my mum." And even after they did that little premiere thing where she stole the film, and then they showed it in Texas, and
Yeah.
I couldn't find the clip, but I know there is a clip of Colleen Hoover standing up and praising her mum, and this I did this for you, and doing all that, right? Stuff I've got no problem with at all. But I feel like any moments in time where Blake Lively shared a stage with Colleen Hoover talking about the impact of abuse and trauma on your mum, that would have been the time to talk about her mother, not 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 months after you file a lawsuit, after
Oh,
you've been
100%.
snarky. Anytime someone's brought up, you've been snarky. And I just, yeah, I'm just like, this is
And
just self-serving. And
also
I'll tell
on
you
that,
what, the other thing is, right? Sorry, but
no, 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 it's
when
fine.
she did that, you may have, I don't know whether you caught this, right? But when she started that whole speech about her mum's experience with a co-worker that nearly killed her, someone she worked with who nearly killed her. Do you know she prefaced it with, the events of the last 2 years, I'm not going to talk about, and then she kind of went straight. It's like she was trying to connect the two.
100% she was. Yeah, she was. And that's
Mm,
exactly kind of what she did in her lawsuit, or in the story in the New York Times. They started with the sexual harassment allegations, which had no proof, no details. It was very
mm.
vague. And then started going into the evidence with the text messages for the smear campaign. And because they ended it with actual text messages that we now know are completely cherry picked to fit a
Yeah,
narrative, like you take one from here and then you pull a text message from, you miss the entire conversation and pull one more text message. Then people started to believe it and they put it together. But then when you separate it, it doesn't
yeah.
match,
So what
it
happened?
doesn't work. And that's exactly what she did at that speech too. She tied it in with her own experience. And then also
Mm.
the audacity for her to bring up Giselle Pellico. I couldn't
Oh my
believe
God,
it. I
are you
was
kidding me?
mortified. Who are you? You had a couple of bad days on set or what? I don't even think that exists, but
No, a
to
guy
talk
called
about
her
Giselle
ward. Uh,
Pellico?
literally, she's moaning about a guy calling her character's wardrobe sexy. By the way, the guy paid for that wardrobe too,
Yeah.
and you were going for that look. But I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane, the gymnastics. There is one thing I wanted to ask you actually, because this is one area I've never actually asked anyone this. When you first read the articles in the New York Times, did
Yes.
you come away thinking, "Oh my God, she's accusing Jed Wallace of being a sexual predator here"? Like of sexually harassing her,
Um,
like the headline, the CRD.
I came away thinking that all of the people that she named in the New York Times knew about the sexual harassment, or that's
Mm,
what she wanted us to believe. They all knew that Wayfarer sexually harassed her, and they all covered it up.
yeah,
So for me, I thought Jed Wallace was going to be just as guilty as everyone else because it was all put
yeah,
together that all of these people knew about it and did nothing and covered it up. That's the story that she wants us to believe and still believe that even by us probably having this conversation that we're part of the smear campaign and Wayfair is paying us. I mean, she still thinks it's going on. Even a legal filing that she put in yesterday said that it's still ongoing. Yeah, I fully believe
yeah,
that she painted the picture in her CRD complaint, as well as in the story in the New York Times, which is pretty much the same thing, to make us believe that all of these people, Jed Wallace, Jennifer Abel, Melissa Nathan, Steve Soritz, everyone who was on set, Jamie Heath, Justin Baldoni, I mean, their wives were on set too, that all of
yeah.
these
Her
people,
husband was.
yeah, Ryan Reynolds was on set multiple times. But they want us to believe that all of these people knew that she was being sexually harassed, and she spoke up about it in August, or I guess because she spoke up about it, they started this smear campaign to cover the sexual harassment. And it doesn't really make sense because she never, why would they start a smear campaign now when the movie's premiering? Like, it doesn't make sense because they want the best movie and the best premiere, right? And she didn't speak up about it during the press tour or the movie release or anything. So it's just very strange, and I fully believe that if her hair Caroline would have taken off, and if her Betty Boos would have taken off, and her reputation not be tainted, and everyone praised her and glorified her like the queen that she wants to be praised, that we wouldn't be here, because I think she just couldn't take she couldn't take a hit. And that's really sad because she's trying to be an advocate for women now and saying that she's doing this for the voiceless, and that's why she's fighting this. But if her businesses would have succeeded, she wouldn't have said anything. So that tells me for sure that it's not true. And also, what a feminist and an advocate for women to have, if she's claiming that these people are huge sexual predators or whatever, that all these men, right, are sexual predators, to not have said anything. She wasn't on set the
Yeah.
whole time. She allowed them to continue to work like this with other young actresses. Isabella, it was her first movie. So what a, way to use your voice for the voiceless if you really thought that these men were sexual predators like you've called them. You allowed them to work and continue to work with other impressionable young women, which to me is absolutely disgusting and shows me that she didn't really think that they were a danger to her or anybody else.
Oh, exactly. And more than that, actually, she's still continuing that because she obviously had multiple avenues where she could have made a complaint. She could have gone to SAG. She could have, sounds like, well, so many say there was no sexual harassment complaints received. So, but she says she went to them. Um, but I think she was, I think the suggestion is she was not complaining over that. It was, oh, we'll get rid of that producer. I don't like her. But there was the CRD. Obviously she went through that, but they would have done an investigation. There's the EEOC. She could have gone there. They would have done an investigation. But the thing is, right, is to go back to the third party the law firm who are currently investigating Wayfarer's conduct. Well, by she is kind of interfering with that by wanting information about who the witnesses are, because witnesses are not going to come forward if they think that their information and their identity is going to be, revealed. They should be given like whistleblower status. But
Absolutely. I mean, she's
she,
fighting really hard to get the names
I
of
know,
all the witnesses, and not only from that investigation, but also any content creators, any journalists they spoke
yeah,
to. I mean, and she wants everything, regardless of if it was just promoting the film or not. And I just spoke about this
yeah,
before. It's so insane for a content creator, because I work with media companies who send me screenings and send me movies to promote or review. And I would never want to be dragged into something like this for reviewing a movie or promoting a movie. And she wants everybody that they've ever even spoken to that even has social media, as well as any of the
yeah,
witnesses on set or any of the witnesses that work for Wayfarer. And that to me is like, why? Like, why don't you just wait till you get,
yeah,
until you're ready to get that information in the court? You will obviously be provided with witness lists and depositions and stuff. So that to me is a huge red
exactly.
flag. And they obviously don't want to give it to her because her and her husband have bought people off and so many people off in the
Oh
past,
yeah,
you know?
they're absolute lunatics. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with it because obviously one of the things she's asking about is, well, is there an email address? Blah blah blah. Now, I've never had a response, but I have sent quite a lot to Brian Friedman. I have. I found the metadata, the October 31st
Good, yes.
metadata.
Yeah.
So I was my first contact. But I have sent, when citizen journalists and Colonel Kurtz, got hold of the ARIA manual lost recording. I sent a link over to him as well to like, oh, make sure you have this. You might need it later on. Things that I have found, I thought, oh, that might be important. I have sent, and I've never kind of hidden from that. Um, but there's no. I haven't gone through some kind of secret, passage down Diagon Alley or anything. I have just gone to his law firm, and or like well, when I couldn't find his email address at first, so initially I went to his law firm. But I mean, the email addresses are on the filings. If you want to contact them, their contact details are there. There's no kind
Yeah,
of, you
there's
don't
no
need some.
secret emails and draft folders. And you
No.
know what's so funny is I think they have a really good way of projecting, and they really think that the Wayfarer people are capable of doing what they're saying they're capable of because they do it. You
Yeah,
know, they've done things
yeah,
like
I
this
do.
before. They've smeared people. They've, I mean, look at just the evidence again, bring it back to Aiko and Brett. They're really good at doing all of this stuff. So now they think that other people are capable of doing it too. And what they're accusing, what they always accuse people of, is what they've actually done themselves. I mean, even Blake Lively saying that Justin
Yeah.
Baldoni bit her lower lip and sucked on her lower lip in a take that wasn't rehearsed, when you have footage of Blake Lively literally doing it to Justin. And you're like, what?
No, and did you see in her first amended complaint? Because I get so many people, like literally today, I had a supporter for Blake Lively come to me and say, "Well, adding intimacy to scenes, unscripted intimacy is not acceptable." I'm like, here, you do know in her first amended complaint, she admitted that she improvised kissing. Is this okay, or is that a different standard? What's called, you know?
Right. There
So
has
she
to be,
actually, ugh,
when you're on set and you're doing, any kind of scene like
mm,
this. And when you look at the movie, there isn't that much nudity and sex scenes and kissing and stuff like that. There really isn't. That's
no,
not a huge major part of the movie. Now, if we were talking about something like, Baby Girl or something, right? Like, but there
mm,
has to be some kind of good faith and trust with your scene partners. I mean, even if you do
yeah,
theater and you do 500 shows a year, not one show will ever be the same when you have physical contact and you have to work with the other person. Like, acting is reacting off what you're getting, and no take is ever going to be the same ever. You can rehearse it to the
mm,
end of time, and when action is called and you're actually dropped in and doing your job as an actor, it's never going to be A, B, C, D. And if it was, nobody would go to the movies. There has to be trust and good faith. And I think Blake Lively took things that were benign, that were not of an issue, and turned it on its head and made it something that it really, really isn't. And lied. I mean, the birthing scene is a lie, the dance montage is a lie. The January 4th meeting that she ambushed them in to then proceed to give them more, protections to work. If that was true and was happening, that she was so unsafe to go back and needed these things covered, the next day she had her kids on set. I mean, I wouldn't. Who does that? Who does that? It just, none of it makes sense. It's just very bizarre. And it's double
yeah,
standards for sure, because she was very sexual in all of her texts with Justin Baldoni, and she was very sexual with Brandon Sklenar on the entire press tour. And there's video of her literally, improving and sucking on Justin's lips. So what is it? It's okay for you. It's just
yeah,
very a lot of double standards, and most people treat people how you treat them, right? So if she is that ball busting, no teeth, yo, I'm a bros girl, like everything's funny, everything's
yeah,
sexual, everything's a joke, I'm cool, I'm what, I'm that, then that's the energy that, your friend is going to give you, because that's how you resonate yourself. So I just, I don't know. I just think it's all
yeah,
like, none of it makes sense. I think she met her match. I really think that she dropped the New York Times story, hoping that the Me Too movement and all women would come forward and tell their own stories about Justin and Jamie, and jump on board and cancel them and get rid of them. But she really, I think she made a big mistake, because people now, they go more with their moral standard and their moral compass, and there's people that look at Justin and Jamie and see exactly who they are, and can look back at Blake and know exactly who she is.
yeah. No, I agree. I think I think she's done. I think they'll all bounce back. Not, as long, from this. I think all of them will somehow bounce back. But right now, the damage to her career and her reputation and Ryan Reynolds, it is bad. Given the reputation he was on such a high from the end. When Deadpool and Wolverine was released.
Hmm.
You've got, the entrance, the dance with NSYNC, that is like one of the biggest things on TikTok. It still is today, actually. Um, and like it really, really gave him such a boost. Um, and then her film then was the two films together. They were the first and second highest grossing films of last year. So I can't understand why she didn't leave everything well alone. People, by the time she filed the CRD, people were coming back. They were over it. It
Over
feels
it,
like
forgotten.
she would have been filming the sequel by now,
Yeah.
and she probably could have asked for more money because she it did so well. It did do so well. And it's I don't understand why she decided to kind of tank her biggest film to date. All for this. I'm not sure why
Yeah, it's quite
because
confusing. It's very confusing
yeah,
because she knew that they had those emails. She knew that they
mm,
had those text messages. She knew that
yeah, of course
Justin
they
had
did.
those text messages. So that's why I think she really thought that the CRD complaint in the New York Times story was going to be enough to ruin these people's lives and take over the franchise. And,
Yeah, I do.
I don't think she thought that they had enough power or money or even, lack of better words, but balls to fight back.
No,
And
it's
I'm
fair.
so happy that they have, because what if they hadn't fought back, we would not know all of the stuff that we know now. And I think Justin is going to be fine once this is all said and done. I mean, I think if he wants to, he'll work again. I think he should still continue to make movies. Like, I think Wayfarer hopefully will land on its feet. But as for Blake, I'm not really sure how many other actors are going to trust being in scenes with her and being on set with her. Um, I don't see her
Yeah.
coming back from this soon.
No, and how many directors are going to work with her again? I mean, she's got Paul Feig, but is she just going to do, Paul Feig movies? Is she going to become basically Ryan Reynolds, who just does Sean Levy films now?
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. I mean, who knows? I know that I would never. I mean, the first sign of ego on a set is never good. I mean, you work so closely with each other, and I don't see very many directors, especially knowing that she forced her way into the edit room and took over the movie and locked Justin out and fought to have his name removed from the poster and the film credits. What director
mm,
would ever want to work with someone like that again? There was no reason for it. The movie was over. Rap date was done. She was flown out to go work on Another Simple Favor. Her part was done. It was
yeah,
over. There was no reason for her to ever sit in that editing room, and every filmmaker and director knows that you do that alone with the editor. And she had no business there at all.
no, I completely agree with that. I do. I mean, it's this is it's a bit of it's a shame as well because I was looking forward to the sequel. I've read both books. I don't think it did the justice to. I think this disappointed me as well. Like, really, did Justin Baldoni put out this film? Because the domestic violence angle was not credible. It wasn't. I was stuck in the marriage for 10 years. I was, and because we were married and we had connections like, that owning the house and things like that and the kids, couldn't just walk away. Like she seemed to the first incident, well, I mean, the first incident looked like an accident anyway. The oven scene where he just kind of lifted his hand and her face was there. It didn't actually look
Yeah.
like he wasn't looking at her. It didn't look like he was actually going to intentionally hit her. But after falling down the stairs and everything, she just got up and walked away for months. And I'm like, that's not how that happens in real life. That does not happen in real life at all. Not
No,
with
there was
well,
a lot of
for the
things
vast
that were,
for the vast
yeah,
majority.
no, it's not that easy and it takes time to leave and it takes a lot of work and bravery and help. And it's never such a
Yeah.
clean cut that then, you know, you just ask them to come and put
No.
your crib together again and everything's fine. No, that's not the way it works. And I think they were pressed on how to shoot scenes and stuff because I know Justin's eye when it comes to filming and his creative by watching his other movies. And but when you
Mm,
have an actor who is canceling scenes, her husband's not letting her shoot certain scenes, she's rewriting the script every day. I mean, how do you shoot
yeah.
something like that and still keep your creative vision? It's
No,
it's
exactly.
heartbreaking.
And it was weird that they kind of normalized, like, relationship is so abusive, right? The last thing I would be doing is kind of flirt, and it was flirting with another man, basically in front of her abusive husband.
Yeah.
Who that clearly has come. I mean, weirdly enough, it's in the book. That's just it. All of that is actually in the book. And I know there's a bit of controversy over Colleen Hoover, and she talks about, well, it's my experience and what my mother went through. Well, your dad left when you were 3 years old. What and by her own words, he was a good father. So she didn't have what experience do you, what a 3-year-old. What experience does a 3-year-old have? And she's also said in an interview, because I remember Elsie found it, where in one interview she said, I think it was when the film was made, she said, "Oh yes, all the experiences, what happened to my mother." But then before the film was made, she says, "Well, no, only the oven scene was what happened to my mum." And I'm like,
Mhm.
if you only saw and in parts in the books as well, kind of the preambles, she puts down a little bit about her, and she does make a point of saying, "No, well, I only really saw one incident." And I'm
Right.
thinking, it what, and that traumatized you so much at 3 years old that you wrote an entire book, and then your marketing point is, this is about my mother's abuse. This is
Yeah.
about how, from her eyes, because she's supposed to be effectively the Lily Bloom. So it's like, I don't know. I felt like it wasn't the most relatable. And I know Colleen Hoover comes with controversy anyway
Yeah, no,
about
it
these
seems like
romanticizing.
they lie a little bit. These women tend to
They
lie
do, don't
and
they?
then why are you lying? It's either a true story or not a true story, you know? But I have a
Yeah.
little bit of a sick dog here and she needs to go out, so I have
No,
to
it's
take
fine.
her out.
It's fine.
So
I'm sorry,
sorry.
we've run massively run over. I've really enjoyed this conversation, actually.
Yeah, me too. It was a great time. I mean, we could probably go on for hours about all of this stuff, you know?
Well, you'll have to come back and join me again, or I can join you on yours. But I mean, always happy to do that. So, yeah, I'll keep in touch with you on Instagram.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this because it's like we're not just covering a ruling today. It's been a bit of everything, and it's been really refreshing to do that. So, thank you so much for spending time with us, and
Same.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
covering Brett and Aiko so well. I
Yeah, I'm gonna keep
appreciate
looking
that. They
into
mean a lot
it.
to me.
I'm gonna keep looking into it and finding more and more and more and letting people know because I think the truth needs to come out and I'm fully
Yeah,
certain that the truth will prevail. So
yeah, I
thank you
hope
so
so.
much for having me. It was a pleasure and thanks for opening up to me about your
That's all right.
experiences and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Oh yes, no, definitely we will. We will do that. Thank you. Take care,
Thank
and
you so
I hope your
much.
dog gets better.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.